Okay, so our topic for today again is equipment, this one. The equipment cost followed by the cost estimating components which deals with the other items, other components na dinadagdag natin on the cost of a project. And at the same time, so aside from the additional cost, so na nanggagaling sa mga materials, so what are the other costs that affects the costing of the entire project? And lastly, bidding, this one. So for bidding, so supposedly this topic should be discussed prior during our first few meetings. The reason why I choose to put it at last kasi I want to emphasize muna yung material estimates kasi yun yung medyo mahaba. It is somewhat time consuming lalo na kung meron tayong plate. Now, sige. I guess you can now start with the equipment cost. So for the equipment cost, whenever we procure or secure an equipment, our main objective here is that to provide the right equipment at the right time and place so the work can be accomplished at the lowest cost. So the right time meaning when the time comes you need the equipment, it is available. And in terms of its place, so is the equipment available or equipment to be used is appropriate based on the actual site condition. And also, on top of that, we should be able to accomplish all of those at the lowest cost. So we don't want to incur too much cost if it is unnecessary or if we can somewhat come up with um, other alternatives which is quite lower compared with the one na mas mahal. So basically ayaw natin na mapapamahal tayo. Kung parehas lang din naman yung kayang i-provide the services ng equipment na yon. The specific objectives for procurement ng equipment is to increase the ownership and operating cost. So ownership meaning magkano yung magagastos natin sa equipment, and then operating cost how much we're going to spend to operate the equipment, like magkano yung mga fuel, oil and gas na gagamitin natin to operate that equipment. And then it should we should be able to increase the availability and utilization, meaning kapag hindi natin siya gagamitin, dapat available siya to to others. Pwede nating i-parent or ipa-lease. Hindi dapat siya naka-breakdown. And then for the increase in utilization, it should be as much as possible palaging ginagamit. Okay? So, ang bottom line ng number 2 and 3 here is that we don't want our equipment to be idle. Okay? Para yung investment natin doon sa asset na binili natin would be able to come up with the earliest return of investment for this one, or much better if it will be profitable. Okay? So for the classification of an equipment, so it is at least divided into two main types. So una is standard, the followed by the special. Pag sinabi nating standard, these are the equipments that is commonly available. Then it is easily replaceable by accessible spare parts kasi kapag may nag-breakdown, may nasira, madaling bilhin yung spare parts niya. Unlike with the special one, it is especially manufactured for specific project. However, yun nga kapag merong breakdown or merong kailangang palitan, the spare parts is not easily available. I think we can consider one of the special equipment yung ginagamit sa TBM, yung sa tunneling, dahil specific yung equipment na yun sa tunneling, and hindi siya locally available or commonly available dito sa atin dahil in-order pa yon sa ibang bansa. Hindi available yung spare parts niya upright, unlike with other equipment like yung mga excavator, mga bulldozer, grader. So common yan sa atin, madaling makabili niyan compared with the TBM. Now, the equipment, okay, as I've said on the first few slides, it should have the lowest cost. We should work at the lowest cost. Okay, not the same as machine at lowest cost. So basically, um, if we're going to have, let's say, if we're going to have an equipment na excavator, okay, now if we're going to have an requirement of 1 cubic meter ang na-excavate, and then ang available sa atin is equipment A and equipment B, but they can perform the same level. So we should be able to somewhat use or have yung may pinakamura doon sa dalawa. But then again, I think ang hindi lang din ako consider dito is the quality. Kasi sometimes if it's a bit higher, however, in terms of the maintenance, it will not be a headache sa atin. So mas okay na mag-invest sa mas mahal ng konti if the maintenance of that equipment is not costly, kasi yung iba mura sa una, mahal pa nagpa-maintenance ka. And then next is the machine utilization, which I already discussed a while ago. And then with this, the utilization derives if we're going to purchase, rent, or lease. Okay? So, yung utilization natin na let's say if we have a project that you will only be required to use an equipment for 3 months. So, do you think purchasing an equipment is worth it or unworthy? Kasi baka mamaya bibili ka ng equipment for the sake na para lang may equipment ka pero hindi mo rin naman siya gagamitin later on. So might as well rent na lang or lease ng equipment kesa matali ka long term doon sa equipment na yon. So for the life cycle cost of an equipment, so we should be able to come up with our calculation to predict the cost of ownership and usage of the equipment. So we want, again, paulit-ulit ko 'to sasabihin kasi we want to reiterate that an equipment should be used frequently or at least daily. And then in terms of the ownership, kung bibili nga tayo, so para makapag-decide tayo, are we going to purchase or not? Very crucial kasi 'yon, kasi take note that that the equipment na ipo-purchase natin, the value depreciates. We also provide cost or set cost para doon sa maintenance niya and operation niya. So as for the selection of our equipment, these are the informations that we check oftenly doon sa equipment. Una, yung machine identification. So what is the identifiers for that machine? Let's say, is it a bulldozer, anong brand, anong unit, etc. So yun yung identifier natin ng machine. Then the utilization data. Ito naman, ano yung kaya niyang i-perform? Let's say, excavator, yung bucket niya kayang mag-excavate, let's say, ng 1 cubic meter, isang excavate lang. So, kung 1 cubic meter yung kaya niyang i-lift dun sa isang bucket, so yun yung utilization niya. Okay? Now, let's say again, meron tayong dump truck na ang laman ng dump truck is 3 cubic meters. So, yun yung utilization data niya. Yung isang biyahe niya, 3 cubic meter ang laman. And then, aside from that, we should also check how much is the cost ng pag-purchase ng ating equipment and how much will it cost us pag nag-repair naman tayo ng equipment. Then, aside from that, eto na, dito na papasok yung sa operating. So, magkano magagastos natin dito sa FOG ng ating equipment. So, ito yung normally sa una hindi makikita kasi ang makikita mo lang presyo is yung purchase cost. Kung magkano ibinebenta yung equipment. Pero ito yung hindi makikita kasi ito yung gastos mo along the way. Kaya very crucial, kaya paulit-ulit ko sasabihin, we need to check kung worth it ba na bibili kayo ng equipment or hindi. So for the utilization data, on top of yung load na binabanggit natin, so yung speed, gaano ba siya kabilis doon sa site, and then what environment it is best to use. 'Di ba merong mga equipment na yung gulong, yung bilog, yung parang gulong lang. Tapos meron namang mga gulong ng vehicles na parang yung gulong ng tangke. So basically, may advantage one over the other. Yung gulong na goma, mabilis siyang makamove. However, mahirap siyang mag-move kapag loose yung soil. On the other hand naman, yung parang tangke yung gulong natin, yung mga excavator na mga parang ganun yung gulong. So mas appropriate siya kapag yung site mo is hindi pa compacted. So medyo loose yung soil, pag lumubog yung gulong, so makakagalaw pa rin siya unlike yung pagkagoma yung gulong. So mahihirapan siyang gumalaw on site. And then for the basis um, yun. So anyway, going back sa another thing is the basis of costing. So how much will it cost hourly, daily, and weekly? Okay, so later on, meron tayong example for this one. And then yung miles consumption niya, nakakamagkano siya, and then the fuel consumption, of course. Wait ang class ah. Okay, class. Anyway, going back. So yun, next is aside from the utilization data, so for the equipment cost, by the way, the equipment cost ranks second sa labor cost natin in terms of uncertainty tsaka sa anticipated profit. Kasi ito yung nagbibigay sa atin ng another chunk of the budget. The reason why it is second sa uncertainty, sa labor kasi, 'di ba, kapag meron tayong mga delays like kunwari may bagyo or meron tayong mga hindi na bumabalik na tao, or let's say meron tayong mga delays dahil medyo mabagal yung mga labor natin. So it is quite uncertain kung if we're going to meet this schedule on time. However naman, pagdating sa equipment, ganun din. Minsan, nakala natin okay yung equipment, kinabukasan, breakdown. So, nagkakaroon tayo ng uncertainty dito sa equipment. That we should also consider sa schedule na meron tayong breakdown kasi kapag ay idealistic yung schedule na ginawa natin at yung cost na ginawa natin, so baka hindi natin ma-allocate yon ng maayos sa ating schedule and cost na meron palang anticipated repairs. So, magkaka-setback tayo sa schedule. And then also, whenever we use equipment, it should be important na magkaroon tayo ng accurate estimation para successful yung ating costing for the project. Take note na medyo malaki yung gastos sa equipment. Later, I will show you an example like magkano yung rent na actual based sa website. Mahirap i-shoulder yung magiging cost na hindi natin na-account kasi medyo mahal talaga yung inaabot ng equipment. So for the total equipment cost, so yung magagastos natin sa equipment all in all, so normally, the total cost of an equipment let's say 10 million, 25% of that one will depreciate through time. So magde-depreciate siya. Okay, at least 25% of that one. Okay? 25% yung matitirang value pala. 25% yung matitirang value, yung salvage value niya. Okay? And then the operating naman, to operate it normally, it is around 23% of the amount ng equipment. Yung repair na gagastusin natin is 37% of the amount ng equipment. And then the overhead ng equipment natin is 15% ng equipment. So, all of this, pinafactor natin as we decide if we're going to purchase or not. Sa depreciation, if you could remember, di ba, siguro tapos na kayo ng engineering economics, di ba? Engineering economy. So, di ba meron dong topic, yung may salvage value. So sa salvage value, yung equipment natin, we make sure na ibebenta din natin later on. Hindi natin i-hold yung equipment natin forever. Kasi yung value nun depreciates, okay? Kaya tayo nagkakaroon ng salvage value, magkano na lang yung value niya matapos nating gamitin. And then, as we hold the equipment longer, the more na nag-require ng more maintenance. So, kaysa magpaulit-ulit tayong maintenance, bili na lang tayo ng bago. Okay? So, yun yung concept behind that. So there are two questions na may isip natin in terms of the equipment. So, how much does it cost to operate ng isang equipment sa project? Okay, not necessarily how much will it cost to purchase, to operate. Kasi may cost to operate ang rent or lease. Then, what is the optimum economic life and optimum manner to secure the machine? So, iniisip natin, ano bang timeline natin sa machine natin? So, una natin, ipakita natin example dito is paano natin nakakome up yung operating cost. Okay? Or yung production cost. So, let's say we have a dozer na ang hourly basis niya is $90 per hour. So, yan yung gastos ng dozer. Then, kung ang kayang i-push ng isang dozer sa isang oras ay 300 cubic yards. So, magkano yung magiging production cost niya? Magkano yung per cubic yard? Okay? So, para makuha natin yung production cost, so kung magkano yung rate niya, which is $90 per hour, you divide that sa kaya niyang i-utilize or yung sa utilization niya sa loob ng isang oras. So that is 90 divided by 300. So the answer is $0.30 per cubic yard. So yan yung production cost. Yan yung cost to operate a machine. Okay? Then second is when is the time to replace the machine? And yung way to secure the machine, ano yung pinaka-optimum way? As I've said a while ago, di ba, as we purchase, later on, we replace it. Okay, so mamaya meron tayong mga further items na i-consider as we deal with the replacement. So this will reduce the O&O cost and thereby lower the production expense. So as I've said, di ba, mas magastos ang isang equipment kapag matanda na at paulit-ulit na siyang nire-repair kaysa bumili ng bago. So, but before we deal with that, so the means of equipment employment, so there are three: purchase, lease, or rent. Pag sinabi natin purchase, bibili natin. Pag sinabi natin lease, inuupahan natin yung equipment for a longer period of time. Pag sinabi natin rent, inuupahan natin yung equipment for a shorter period of time. Almost synonymous yung rent and lease. However, yun nga, ang pinagkaiba niyan is yung duration. Mas mahaba ang lease compared sa rent. Okay? So, for the purchase, it has the lowest hourly use charge. Then, ang challenge dito is we need to keep the fleet busy. Kailangan ginagamit natin yung equipment most of the time. Whether sa project natin or pinapa-rent out natin. The other hand, yung lease naman, so it has the higher use charge than owning a piece of equipment. Higher use charge, hindi siya yung higher purchase charge. Kung ang usage charge ng purchase is let's say 10,000 pesos, si lease baka nasa 15,000 pesos. Okay? So parang ang logic doon is that kung ikaw yung magrerenta ng equipment mo, 15,000 pesos siya dapat. Yun yung or yung lease, yun yung ipapabayad mo sa upa. However, dahil ikaw yung may-ari, syempre hindi ka naman kikita sa sarili mo. So ang use charge mo lang doon is let's say 10,000. Yung 5,000, yun yung profit mo for that. I hope na susundan niyo ako doon. And then at under lease, ang kinagandahan naman dito kung lease ka lang, wala kang risk involved kasi hindi ka magme-maintain. Kapag sira, papapalitan mo yung equipment, 'di ba? Kapag may breakdown. Ganon din sa rent. Kapag may breakdown, papapalitan mo lang din 'yan. Pero ang pinagkaiba ng lease at ni rent, mas mahal si rent compare kay lease kasi shorter period of time mo lang siya gagamitin. An example of this na mina-maximize yung equipment, if you could notice, 'di ba, doon sa ginagawang mga kalsada sa atin, pagka bine-breaker na, binabasag na yung kalsada. So babasagin nila ng isang stretch, pwedeng 500 meters and so, pero iniiwan nila. That's because yung equipment rent probably or yung usage ng equipment is too expensive para mag-standby yung equipment. Kung ang gagawin mo by segment, kunwari every 5 meters lang yung babasagin. Kaya ginagawa nila, binabasag nila ng isang buo, then later on, aalis na yung equipment. Babalik na lang yan kung may tatrabahuin siyang kakailanganin yung equipment na yon. So yun yung concept doon behind. Kaya yung although tayong mga civilian, so naiinis tayo, ano na naman, binasag na naman, hindi pa naman ginagawa, ganito ganyan. So ang reason kasi yun is that mahal yung rent or yung lease nung or yung usage cost kung sila yung may-ari nung equipment. Kasi kapag umistambay doon yung equipment, kung ayaw nating basagin na sunod-sunod, mas mahal yung magiging gastos doon sa ginagawang kalsada kasi pati yung idle time ng equipment is babayaran. Ayun. Then few tips, okay? So as we select, so there are different possibility available to perform any given task. Now take note that there is no standard or best piece of equipment for any particular job. So kung ano yung best appropriate sa project, yun yung best to use dun sa project. Then no contractor can afford all types and size of equipment that might be useful for the kind of the work he performs. So with this, yung equipment kasi natin in the selection, tinitingnan natin yung environment kung kakasya ba yung equipment natin. For example, maliit yung area, we need to excavate 1 cubic meter every bucket. Now, if we're going to consider that, so dapat yung equipment na bibili natin, kasya lang dun sa area natin. Kung maluwag yung area natin, so that's the time that I think we can secure or use much bigger equipment. Okay? And then, yun nga, pagdating sa mga contractor, ang binibili nila, yung equipment that can perform multiple performance or multiple activities na kayang gawin nung equipment natin. And hindi siya all sizes and types. Yung yung eksakto lang doon sa pangangailangan nila. Then, next is the cost of construction. So, ito yung sinabi natin kanina, di ba, yung O&O. So, take note that there are two general types of cost. Una is yung ownership followed by the operating, which equates to equipment cost, which is, ano ba yun? Ito. For the ownership cost, yung purchase price natin, yung purchase price, so ano yan, yan yung perang palabas. Pag binenta mo, you subtract the salvage value, yung minus yan yung papasok sa bulsa natin. Yung overhead plus yan, palabas uling pera sa atin yan. Okay, yan yung gagastusin natin to make the equipment working. So that will equal to the ownership expense. Okay. Yung negative dyan, yan lang yung papasok na pera sa atin. All positive palabas yan. Now, ito yung nakaka-apekto sa equipment ownership cost. So, una yung purchase. Una, yung purchase expense, followed by the salvage value. Okay? Then, yung tax saving from depreciation. And then, if there are any major repairs and overhauls sa ating equipment, property taxes, meaning kung nakagarahe yung equipment natin doon sa lote natin, so sino dapat magbayad nung amilyar? So definitely, yung sasakyan, kailangan yung kinikita nun, doon ka kukuha ng pambayad. So kasama yon sa expenses dito. Insurances na equipment, tsaka yung storage and miscellaneous. I think, eto na yung last slide. Pakita ko lang. Ito yung example ng equipment rental rates. Actual to sa Philippines to. Ayan. So, ito yung website ng Maxima. I think makikita to sa NLEX eh. May Bandang Valenzuela, parang may office, may parang warehouse sila doon. So, eto, kung makikita nyo, yung monthly and yearly rate, we can consider monthly as rent, yearly as lease, mas mura. So, if we compare that, yung isang ano ba to? Excavator. Okay. So, if you're going to have it monthly, so that's 340,000. If you multiply that by 12, so yearly, kung i-compare mo sa lease, so mas mura, of course, yung mas longer duration. So yan yung yan yung difference ng dalawa. Pero bottom line nun, hindi ikaw may-ari niyan. Okay. Actually, good business din yan eh, yung vehicle rentals. Lalo yung mga heavy equipment na yan. Ayun. With that, class, any question? Bago tayo mag-proceed with the next topic? Wala? Sige. Let's proceed with the next topic, which is cost estimating component. So for the cost estimating component, so the purpose of this one is to establish the budget to order services and material. So I think most of this slide na discuss na natin, pero pasadahan na lang din natin. So ang objective of this topic is for you to identify what are the items or what are the aspect ng project na we need to consider whenever we do costing. Hindi lang material, man hours, pamasahe, meal allowance. So meron pang iba. So unang-una sa lahat is the profit margin. So whatever the amount you're going to come up, so there should be a profit in return. Kasi kaya nga tayo nagko-contracting business is for us to earn. Now, ang definition ng profit, it is the acceptable rate of return or compensation for a project based on the risk associated with the project. So, yun. Normally, ang range niya nasa maximum 10% of the budget cost. Now, pwedeng mas mababa, pwede rin namang mas tumaas. However, pag tumaas, sometimes it is hard for you to justify or sometimes hindi na napapanalunan yung project kapag more than 10% ng project yung ating profit. So for the cost estimating component, so these are the things that affects the cost estimating components natin. Una yung scope of work, kung ano yung trabaho kasi doon magdedepende yung labor, equipment, and material. And lastly, yung project duration, kung gaano siya kahaba. Okay, so ito yung nagiging basis ng ating costing. On the other hand, factor din yung market condition, kamusta ba yung market doon sa area natin, and then yung mga location factors like yung area ba natin na paggagawa ng project is nasa city, nasa province. So we check kasi nagiging factor din yung let's say yung logistics ng mga materials kung kailangan natin mag-add on ng cost for the logistics. Yung sa market condition, yun nga kung um, kung nasa Manila tayo or nasa province, pwedeng mag-govern yung provincial or Manila rate. O kaya naman, on the other hand, yung nangyayari ngayong crisis sa fuel, so we should also consider that economic condition. And then inflation also, annually nag-i-inflate yung purchasing power ng peso, so we should also consider that by how much percent. And then lastly is yung contingency allowance. Ito yung mga miscellaneous, yung mga extra budget or extra money for the unexpected costs. So for the factors that affects labor, so yung project complexity, gaano ba ka-complex yung project? So kung medyo complex, so mas mahal ang bayad sa tao. Geographical location, again, higher living costs, higher wages. So yun nga, kung nasa Manila or nasa province. So wala tayong magagawa. Meron talagang provincial rate na hopefully wala na kasi parehas na naman ang gastos ng tao. Pero yun lang, hanggat andyan pa yung batas, so we check the geographical location. Then next is the market condition. Okay, so if there are labor shortage or high demand, so it can increase wages. So yung project type, I think it can also be considered as the complexity ng project. So yung mga residential project is different from the commercial and industrial projects. So magkaiba yung labor demands. And lastly, the technology adoption, so yung automation and prefab, so it can also be considered sa labor cost. So for calculating of labor cost, na discuss na natin to, I will just skip it for now. We already discussed this one. And eto, yung other labor cost consideration, aside doon sa na-discuss natin last meeting, we should be able to consider yung taxes ng payroll. So hindi to VAT. Ito na yung nila, yung income tax. So kailangan sinasama na rin natin yung income tax nila. Okay, wag natin ibabawas 'yon doon sa profit nila. Sa kita ng mga tao natin. So isama natin yung income tax. Paid time off. So let's say meron tayong mga tao, kung si engineer, so normally nagbibigay yung company ng mga benefits na paid leave. So kasama din dapat 'yon sa computation natin. So kapag may paid leave, so that is let's say that is 12 vacation leave and 12 sick leave. So dapat pati 'yon accounted sa pag-budget natin ng project cost. Okay, dahil yun, other labor cost consideration. Let's say ang daily rate ng engineer is 2.5. So if you multiply that by 12 days na leave times 2, kasi siya sick leave and BL, so dalawa 'yon. So 60,000, at least 60,000 more ang idadagdag natin diyan sa paid leave na 'yan. Sa batas, ang alam ko 5 leaves as long as regular. 5 leaves, hindi siya BL and sick leave Total leave na 'yon. 5 total leaves, 'yun ang required by law. Yung ibang company nagbibigay lang ng more than kasi as part of the benefit para maging competitive yung package na i-offer sa employee. And then employment-related insurances, example nito yung mga health cards. Okay, and then yung iba naman nito, ang example is yung may life and death insurance. At any accident na may mangyari sa iyo, may makukuha yung pamilya mo. Pero normally this employment-related insurance, kaya ang employment-related insurance, it is coterminous kapag pag nag-resign yung employee, yung health card niya terminated as well as the yung life insurance ng employee natin. And then lastly, yung recruitment and training cost for any trainings na nagagawin ng employee, so kailangan natin yon. Sa recruitment naman, yung iba sinasagot ng company yung medical ng employee. So isasama din natin yun sa costing natin. And then sometimes yung companies na na nagre-require ng 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 tao, so kailangan nila ng headhunter or ng recruitment agency. So pati yun babayaran nila, 'di ba? So pati yun isasama nila sa budget consideration. So again, ang bottom line on all costs should be accounted doon sa ating labor. So and then lastly for the labor rates, so ito nung last 2024 hindi ko pa na to na-update. Ang minimum wage noon is to 645. So ito yung position and then ito yung hourly and daily rate nila. Bakit meron pa ring below minimum? So I think it's still a practice. Pero based on this one, kasi I think there are activities sa site na hindi nila bibigyan ng ganitong amount kasi they think na hindi worth it. Pero however, they should follow pa rin yung minimum amount. Pero I'm not sure if this is up to date. Pero yun, bottom line here is that as you see, the position ng mga personnel natin sa site, so nag-iiba yan depende sa kayang i-offer ng employee or ng ating tao. Mas mahal, of course, si foreman. Okay, so with that, so that's the end of our cost estimating components. So ito yung mga factors na kina-consider natin sa ating costing. Any question, class, for our second topic? Wala. Sige, let's go with the last one, which is bidding process. Okay. So for the bidding process, let's just focus lang sa construction bidding kasi maraming bidding lalo under yung Philippine Procurement Act. Okay, so dito lang muna tayo sa construction bidding. So it is known as the tendering process, the stage where a construction company prepares a detailed proposal outlining how it will manage and execute a project. So basically, merong company na magpapa-bid kasi meron siyang project. So may mga companies na magpapasa ng proposal para mapanalunan yung project. So yun yung bottom line nun. And then meron tayong mga requirements later on ng mga documents which we will be discussing also. Okay, so yun yung bottom line of the construction bidding. So we pitch our best price para mapanalunan yung isang project. Now, for the bidding types, so there are at least 3. Open tendering, ito yung bids na open to public. Normally, government projects to kasi nasa procurement law natin. Then, anyone can submit basta qualified. Ang pros nun is healthy competition, transparency, and fairness. So normally, nakikita natin yung lowest bid na kayang i-offer ng mga companies dyan. On the other hand, ang cons naman nun, take note that not all lowest bid is good kasi merong parang complexity yung project. Whether the company that pitched the lowest bid did not considered some of the aspect kaya siya mura. Let's say kung ang budget ng government or ng client is nasa 10 million, so dapat ang ibibid ng mga proponent is roughly within that range. Kapag ang binid ng lowest is 5 million, so there must be something wrong. Baka may hindi siya na-consider. Kasi kapag nag-push through yung project at napanalunan nyo ng pinakamura at nagkataon na mali yung computation niya, so pwedeng iwan, pwedeng takbuhan ng contractor or baka takbuhan ng contractor yung project natin. So we don't want that to happen. Then next is selective tendering. For the selective tendering, the client normally selects company who will bid sa project. Ang kinagandahan dito is that experienced and trusted contractors participate. So it minimizes project risk and delay. The reason why nagkakaroon ng selective bidding or tendering is that yung client natin ano, kilala na lahat ng mga ano na yan, lahat ng mga ano 'to, contractor na i-invite niya to bid. Okay, on the other hand, yun lang ang cons nun is that mas mahal siya ng konti doon sa local market competition niya. Kasi dahil, selective yun, so normally yung mga sine-select mo, um, may reputation, let's say mga quadruple A company. So mas mahal maningil ng quadruple A kaysa sa mga maliliit na construction company or yung nagsisimula pa lang. Okay, and then lastly, for the negotiated tendering or ang tawag namin dito ay single select. Pag sinabi nating single select or negotiated tendering, ito naman is sinabi ni client, ikaw na lang yung gumawa, bigyan mo ako ng proposal. So, ang maganda sa single select, presyo na lang pag-uusapan nyo. Sigurado nang sa'yo ibibigay yung project. Ang kinagandahan doon is that it normally happens because you have a deep trust or good relationship doon sa client. On the other hand naman, yung cons naman is dahil ikaw lang yung nagpasa, so wala siyang baseline or basis for comparison ng project cost. Maliban na lang yung mga past projects yung dalawa. Yun lang yung basis niya, wala nang iba. Okay. Now, for the bidding process, so magsisimula yan sa bid solicitation. Yung owner will issue ng invitation to bid or ano, request for proposal para sa mga selected bidders or request for quote. Sa mga public projects, may open invitation must be extended to registered contractors in accordance with procurement law. Then, the bid package typically outlines yung project requirements, contract types, specs, bonding and insurance terms, and delivery framework. So, etong bid package, yung bid docs, hinihingi natin yan sa client. Pero yung iba binibili yan yung bid docs. Ang binibili mo dyan kasi dahil nag-prepare yung client ng document. So, bibilin mo yung bid docs sa kanila. Okay. So, for the submission, so contractors must prepare a proposal detailing delivery methods, schedules, qualification, and cost structure. So, basically, yun, in short, magpapasa tayo ng proposal, sasabihin natin sa client, ito yung proposed budget natin sa project. Hoping na tayo yung mananalo. Then, next is the bid evaluation and leveling. So the client reviews all proposals. So ito naman is ine-evaluate na nila. Chine-check na nila sino yung um, mapipili nilang bidder doon sa project. So once that they evaluate and level all the bidders, so that's the time na pag na-select na yung ating bidder, so there would be a finalization ng bid. So there will be a legal binding agreement to protect both parties legally. So take note that under this legally binding agreement, so magkakaroon tayo ng contract. So make sure that you read the clauses sa contract clearly. Much better if you could hire a lawyer or na mag-review ng contract kasi ayaw mo na later on pa nagka-issue, ikaw yung malilintikan or tipong ikaw yung on the disadvantage. Kasi dahil kung merong mga aspect ng contract na vague and open for interpretation, so we don't want that. Kaya dapat clear tayo pagdating sa kontrata. So kung medyo hindi tayo familiar or we are unaware on legal terms, so we should seek seek assistance sa lawyer. So yung, of course, yung mga gastos doon dapat sinama mo na din doon sa cost ng ating project. Okay? Para maiwasan natin yung disputes kasi nagkakaroon ng dispute. diyan sa ano, sa ano 'to, sa mga kontrata. Okay, so itong standard terms of construction contract, I think I already discussed this one. So I'll just skip on it, yung lump sum, unit price, et cetera. So I'll just skip this kasi na-discuss na nga yan last time. So for the delivery method, okay, for the delivery method, so meron tayong tinatawag na design, bid, build. So eto, magpapa-design ka sa isang company, let's say kay company A, tapos magpapabid ka ng construction kay companies 1, 2, and 3. Kung sino manalo, siya yung magko-construct. So basically, kung sino yung nag-design, hindi siya yung contractor. Ito yung traditional sequence. However, kung maliit lang naman yan, yung iba, sila na rin yung design and build. Or kung complex, as long as yun yung gusto ng client, so meron naman tayong design and build. So normally, ito yung ano, yung ikaw na yung nag-design, ikaw pa yung contractor. And then there's also a construction manager at risk. So dito naman, the construction manager engages early in the design phase to ensure feasibility and oversees project execution while assuming defined financial risk. And then lastly, there is a job order contracting. Ito naman is a flexible method that allows manager to issue service order to contractors on an as needed basis. So on call within a set time frame. So kung kailan sila kakailanganin. It is often used for a large multi-phase programs with ongoing sub-projects. So basically, yung mga subcon ganito, kunwari ang gagawin nila, um, ano to, yung windows. So tatawagin lang sila kung may ikakabit silang bintana. Kung wala, so hindi mo na sila tatawagin. Pero naka-contract sila sa set time frame na yung windows ng ganitong ano, kayo yung papagawain ko. Pero sasabihin namin kung kailan kayo mag-i-install. Parang ganun. Okay? Then, for the comprehensive cost estimation and critical variable. So, basically, ito yung nagiging critical doon sa ating cost. 'Di ba kanina yung mga components. So, ito din naman yon. So, una, yung material. So, ito yung nagde-define kung magkano yung project natin, 'di ba? Kaya nga tayo nagko-QS, followed by the pre-construction cost, how much will be the baseline ng administrative expenses such as yung municipal permits, inspections, insurance coverage, legal safeguards, and processing fee. So lahat ng yan, ng mga indirect cost or pre-construction cost, isinasama natin yan sa total cost of project. Dapat accounted para makapagpasa tayo ng successful bid price. And then labor, and then equipment. So na-discuss na natin. Tsaka yung overhead naman, ito yung mga indirect cost na wala nang kinalaman ano sa project itself, pero kailangan yan kasi kailangan nating gastusan yan to make sure our company operates. Kunwari kung may babayaran tayong mga marketing, so sila yung magpe-prepare ng mga documents natin sa proposal, sila yung tutulong gumawa ng proposal. Let's say yung mga other overhead, mga bayad sa electric, water bill, or doon sa ating office rent. So lahat ng yan, part siya ng overhead. So it should be accounted doon sa cost estimation for us to have a good bid. Kasi pag wala, so baka later on, hindi na mag-function yung construction company mo. Now, for the pre-invitation protocol and essential documentation, so basically, so these are the the documents that we need sa pre-invitation doon sa bid docs natin. Okay? So, first is we should have the blueprint and specification. So, it should be verified, clear and correct and final. So, dapat kung ano man yung matatanggap natin, wala nang binabago doon. And then the BOQ must be developed by us to an absolute baseline of accuracy. Ang baseline naman natin yan is palagi yung blueprints and plans. If there are special conditions sa contract, it must be thoroughly analyze to eliminate latent compliant liabilities. So ayaw natin na hindi tayo na-consider, so we make sure that we would be able to analyze them accordingly. And the contractors must complete an exhaustive study of blueprint specs and project site before filling out yung ating tenders. So, yung blueprint dito, class, as we deal with this, as we arrive with the BOQ, we should be able to detailing to estimate it in detail para later on yung magiging cost natin is accurate, best accurate na kaya nating gawin. Then yun nga, if there are any questions arise during the checking ng mga blueprints or plans, although it is verified, we should ask bago tayo magpresyo. If not, doon tayo ang nangyayari doon, kunwari pag sinabi, hindi, lahat na nakalagay dyan accurate, okay na yan. So pagka ganun, sasabihin natin that yung price na pepresyohan natin based sa plan is based doon sa natanggap natin sa tender, and anything na may changes or anything na may clarification that will have an impact doon sa cost, so it should be part of the additional expense sa client. So ito yung package, ito yung sinasabi sa inyo mga document na dapat ipasa natin kapag nagbibid tayo. So magsisimula yan sa invitation to bid. Okay, ito yung mga checklist. Magsisimula yan sa invitation to bid, followed by the instruction to bidders. So dito sa instruction to bidders, sasabihin kung paano nyo gagawin yung proposal. Kasi there are companies or clients that have their own format. So hindi natin pwedeng gamitin yung company format. Ang reason doon is that para pag chinek nila yung mga proposal, they can compare it upright. So hindi sila mahihirapan i-compare. Alam nila yung page na pupuntahan. So alam nila kung ano i-compare nila. Then the bid data sheet. So which is a detailed reference sheet specifying project particulars, timelines, and requirements. And then also there's a general condition sa contract that na may clauses covering legal, administrative, and procedural obligation. May I just share, yung dati kong company, nagkaroon sila ng Quezon City office kasi one of their clients have a general condition na dapat may Quezon City office yung client na yon. 10-year client siya. So nag-open yung dati kong company sa Quezon City. Ang office namin before sa Makati. Pero hindi binitawan yung nasa Makati. Kaya naging dalawa yung offices namin. Now, the reason why gusto ni client na may Quezon City office kasi every week meron silang face-to-face meeting para hindi nalalayo yung client kung pupunta sa office namin, and at the same time hindi na mata-traffic yung mga ka-work nila sa office namin papunta sa office nila, vice versa. Kasi nga magkalapit lang. Then, there's also a special condition sa contract. Ito kung merong mga modification na project specific, it should be also noted sa special conditions ng contract. Yung tech specs, drawings, ito yung binibigay ng designer. So, ito yung dinesign tapos yung tech specs. Yung tech specs normally ang laman niyan similar with the construction notes. However, yung detailed niya nandoon sa tech specs. Ang laman ng tech specs yung like ilan yung gravel size, ilan yung grade ng bakal, ano yung procedure sa sa pag-procure ng concrete, etc. So basically, nasa tech specs yun. And then, next is the BOQ. Ito, pine-prepare natin yung BOQ ng isang project. Yung mismo ginagawa niyo sa estimate. So BOQ yun. And then, standardized bidding forms. Again, if there are template by the client. So, yun yung standardized bidding forms na i-fill out ng bidder. And then for the post submission, so once we submit, okay, so let's have a quick ano lang pass through with that. And then sa awarding nung bid. So after the pre-bid, so basically pala sa pre-bid, ang ginagawa diyan, magmi-meeting lahat ng bidders, kaharap yung mga clients representative, any technical clarification, etc. Pwedeng itanong doon, pero ang purpose nun is that sabihin ni client ano yung gusto nilang ipagawa. Yun yung pre-bid conference or pre-bid meeting na nadidinig natin. So then pag nakapag-submit na ng proposal, so pag nakapag-submit na ng proposal, um, tawag dito, yung sa bid opening phase, so dito na, wait lang class. Anyway, going back. So, under the bid opening phase, so dito naman is that um, they at the opening phase, so dito all proposals sealed are open publicly or i-open na nung bidding committee or yung board na mag-evaluate ng bids. However, if there are late bids, so they are rejected. That's the reason why, class, if if you are, I think if you could notice yung mga submissions na nire-require namin mga faculties are may deadlines, very strict. Pagka hindi kayo nakapagpasa, hindi na tinatanggap. Because sa actual world, kapag late kang nag-submit ng bid, i-reject talaga yan. So, as simple as a plate, kailangan matututunan natin na if there is a deadline, we should be able to beat the deadline. Kasi if not, so it will be rejected without exception. So hindi ka nakasali sa sa bidding. Yun yung talagang nangyayari sa actual world. Then once that the bids are opened, so now the bids are will be evaluated. Now, it is managed by a interdisciplinary panel. So sila na yung magi-screen ng mga bidders tsaka ng mga contractor. Yung iba ang ginagawa dito before the awarding kapag nakapili kapag binibreak ninanarrow down na nila yung bidders into few candidates na lang. Kunwari meron top 1, 2, and 3, minsan na sinasabi pa ng client is that ito yung cost mo. Meron pa bang ibababa to? Ito na-experience ko na to first hand bago ma-award. Sabi, meron pa bang ibababa to? So yun. So minsan nakikipag-negotiate pa yung client kung ikaw yung gusto niya pero gusto pa niyang humirit ng discount. I think na-discuss natin last time pagdating sa mga discounts na ganyan kung paano natin ina-navigate yung yung paghirit ni client ng discount. Okay, then once everything is settled, tapos na yung okay na yung bid mo, then happy na si client doon sa gagastusin niya. So that's the time the project will be awarded and a letter of award will be issued. Meaning awarded, sa'yo na i-award yung project. However, it doesn't mean na pwede ka na mag-start. Mag-i-start ka lang either nag-down payment na yung client or mayroon ng notice to proceed. Kasi yun yung legal document mo or katibayan or katunayan na pwede ka na mag-start. Siyempre pa nagbayad na yung client, kailangan mo na mag-start. Kapag nag-issue siya ng notice to proceed tapos nagkaroon ng problema, pwede mo siyang asuntuhin or kasuhan dahil legal document kasi yun yung notice to proceed. Binibigyan ka na niyan ng authority na magsimula tapos hindi ka babaya. So kailangan doon ka sa sa safe na na place para hindi ka malulugi later on. Okay? Then Last part of this topic is the RA 9184, which is the Government Procurement Act. So this is a Philippine law that governs all procurement sa infrastructure projects, goods, consulting services by the national governments and local government units. It aims is to standardize, modernize, and ensure yung transparency and accountability in public spending. Actually, kahit yung as simple as ballpen or bond paper, hindi yan pwede basta-bastang bilhin hindi yan pwede basta-basta gastusan ng gobyerno nang walang bidding. Kaya medyo matagal yung pagbibid. Kaya minsan much better na lang na umasa yung mga government agencies sa donation nung private companies. Okay? I think I can give an example yung yung building namin sa UP, yung Institute of Civil Engineering. Ito is nakwento lang naman sa akin nung prof. Nung panahong natapos na yung building, as in bare, wala pang pinto, tapos as in marami pang kulang, pero may building na. So what happened is that I think they solicited doon sa mga alumni nila to fund yung completion ng building. Kasi mas mabilis yun yung yung hihingi yung magse-secure ng funding from the private. Kasi pag private, wala namang magagawa yung government doon. Kasi nga donation yun. So hindi siya kailangang i-audit. Well, magiging property na siya later on ng government, pero what I'm trying to say is that the expenses ng private companies, so mas mabilis 'yun kaysa magantay ng budget. Tsaka hindi matatagalan. Ayun. Now, so under this RA, so the core principle again is first is to have a transparency, competitiveness, streamlined process, accountability, and public monitoring. Now, yung key mechanisms nito before we have a bid, dapat every procuring entity, meaning kung sino yung government agency na magpo-procure, mag-establish sila ng BAC. Meaning sila yung mag-check nung ipo-procure. Kailangan may BAC. Normally, mga mga empleyado din ng government agency na yun. So, sila yung nagiging BAC. Pero kailangan may BAC. And then, for the competitive bidding, so this is default. However, yung other methods like shopping, yung tayo na mismo yung direct na bibili sa store, then yung mga negotiated procurement, it is only allowed under specific highly regulated condition. So just visit yung RA 9184 to check yung specific conditions dito. Kung kailan lang pwedeng hindi magpabid ng directly, yung pag-shopping is okay na. And then there is a centralized electronic portal sa PhilGEPS, the Philippine Government Electronic Procurement System, where all government bidding opportunities, award, and registries must be posted to promote transparency. So may website for that. Okay? So lastly, I think last na to, tama. So sino yung cover ng RA 9184? So these are all branches of government. So executive, judiciary, and legislative. Okay? Including mga national government bureaus and agencies. Ito na nga yung three branches of the government. Yung mga GOCC, yung government-owned or controlled corporation. Then, state universities and colleges. So, yung schools tulad ng sa atin, tsaka mga LGUs. So, lahat sila covered ng RA 9184. Sometimes, there are projects na infrastructure, pero project or kahit hindi infrastructure, may project ang government pero private ang magfa-fund. Okay? So, pag-usapan muna natin pag government ang magpa-fund. Pag government ang magpa-fund, there is a requirement na 60-40. 60% of the company na nagbibid dapat Filipino-owned. 40% lang ang foreign. Well, kung 100%, okay, mas okay. Now, bakit mayroong mga companies na nakakapag-bid, yung mga foreign companies na nakakapag-bid sa mga infrastructure projects ng government kahit may 60/40 requirement. Nangyayari 'yon kapag ang funding is private like JICA or World Bank or ADB. So pagdating sa ganyan, merong specific requirements yung mga loaning agency kung sino at ano ang kukunin nilang companies. So with that, doon pumapasok yung other foreign companies para mag-work doon sa project ng government. So kung yun yung clause, yun lang yung time na hindi sakop ng RA 9184 na hindi sakop nung 60/40 rule yung yung pag-bid. And another thing kapag ka-private naman ang magfa-fund. Let's say ang pinaka-example ko lagi dito is yung project I think ni MVP ni Manny Pangilinan, yung CCLEX, yung expressway sa Cebu na Cebu Cordoba Link Expressway. So yung company namin before, yung naging Geotecton, yung GHD. So yung company namin is 100% foreign owned. Pero pero local yung mga engineers na tulad namin. However, dahil funded siya by private, so may discretion yung funding kung sinong company yung kukunin. So hindi na take effect doon yung 60/40 dahil hindi naman government funds ang gagamitin kung hindi private fund yung yung PPP, yung public private partnership. So doon siya papasok kaya since funding ng private, so pwedeng kunin ng private kung sino yung best suit para sa kanila doon sa project. Okay, I think with that yun yung end ng ating topic for the semester. Do you have any question, class? Anything bago tayo mag-adjourn for today?
Sir,
Yes.
confirm ko lang po. Ilan na lang po ba yung natitirang quiz po natin?
Yes. So yun yung i-confirm ko for for my next na sasabihin. Pero anyone wala na bang question doon sa topic bago ko sagutin si Haydin? Wala. Sige. Now, yung sa natitirang quiz, just in case hindi kayo nakapasok nung Thursday, this will apply for both. Wait lang. I think stop ko na muna yung recording. Okay, so this will apply